Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers as we get set for today's show here on Tuesday, April 26, 2022. We're going to hit on a lot of stuff from the Rocky Mountains, that area, Denver. Holden Kushner is going to join us in just a moment from the VSiN Denver City Cast presented by Bet Rivers. That is coming up, and we'll talk about the Nuggets. They are back in action tomorrow against Golden State, trying to extend that series. We saw the Raptors stay alive last night. The Nets not stay alive. They're bounced. So it was nice knowing you, Nets. No wins. 4-0 sweep by the Celtics. And also Dallas now one step closer to the second round after they demolish Utah. So we'll talk about some of the playoff games for tonight. Also look ahead to that Nuggets-Warriors game tomorrow. And also talk some NFL draft with our friend Holden Kushner. That's right. VSiN Denver City Cast presented by Bet Rivers. And Holden, it's good to see you again. And how much of the chance did you give Denver going into Game 4, down 3-0 to Golden State?
Not very much. I did not give him very much credit or very much of a chance. I mean, listen, Golden State had come out and they were just killing them with the three ball. Yeah, you got Clay going nuts. You had Poole going nuts. You had Curry's minutes going up. And I think the big thing that changed this, there's a couple of them. First of all, Jokic got on track these last two games, so it took a little while for him to get there, but he's definitely there. They sent Aaron Gordon out on Jordan Poole early in Game 4, and that really just stifled Poole's production. And I wonder if they can do that again, or if that was just a one-game thing. I'd like to see Austin Rivers in the starting lineup a little bit so he can go up against Curry. Rivers had 5 steals in that last game. So I think a lot is just working for them in that one game, the home court advantage, Jokic going off. But still, the Warriors have done a great job of limiting Jokic's ability to get assists. That's the big thing because he's the MVP. The whole offense goes through him. It hasn't been going through him as much this series for the sole fact that he hasn't been able to be a facilitator. And I thought that's something that opponents probably should have done most of the season. They didn't catch on until maybe the last 2 weeks of the regular season, and we're seeing it now.
Holden, there's only so much Nikola Jokic can do it. He is the MVP from the standpoint of there's not a lot of help around him. Obviously, no Jamal Murray. If he's there, the Nuggets probably have a better shot. And also Michael Porter Jr., who was getting better, that, he's hurt. What happened to Aaron Gordon the first 2 games? He did nothing. The 2 games in Denver, he played better. But what happened to him while he was so shut down the first 2 games?
Yeah, I think he was pressing. I think he knew that he had to be the number 2 scoring option, and he's just not the number 2 scoring option on any team. He shouldn't be, but he has to be here right now because there's been no Murray all season long, Kevin. And I think an underrated story here, some people in Denver are every bit as frustrated in him as the rest of the world is in Ben Simmons. I don't think it's to the same extent because Simmons' exit from Philadelphia, and then he says he's coming back and he's not coming back. But I think there's definitely some frustration here, and maybe they had a shot to win this series with him. But back to Aaron Gordon, like you were asking, you saw him more comfortable at home, taking the ball to the rim. He was settling for threes, sometimes open, sometimes not. But if you look at this roster, if Murray's in there, if Porter's in there, this guy is probably the number 5 scoring option. Will Barton's probably the number 4 scoring option. And now you got the 4 and 5 scoring options having to be your 2 and 3. They also got these remarkable performances for Bones Highland and Monte Morris. I am so sorry because everybody hates Marcus Morris here. But yeah, I mean, I just think Aaron Gordon was pressing. He got back on the board. We'll see what he does. They're going back on the road in game number 5, and I'm not feeling great if I'm back in the Nuggets.
Now, as far as the totals have gone so far in this in the series, Holden, a lot of overs. 225.5. You go over again. It was 223.5 in game 4. 126, 121 win for Denver. You go again with the over going back to San Francisco.
Yes. Absolutely. This whole series has gone nuts. And the more I dug into it, I faded it in game 1, hit it live in game 2, game 3 and 4. It's just been overs. And you look at the pace, like these two teams, they're 5th and 6th in pace here among the playoff teams. That's big. I mean, that's one thing you want. You want them running up and down. The second thing is the Warriors defense is supposed to be stifling. The Nuggets somehow, some way have figured out a way to score enough points to help this thing go to the over. And there's just no way the Nuggets can stop the Warriors, especially in transition. They haven't been a good 3-point shooting defense in a long time. And I'm not just talking this year or the year before that. It's been a while since they've been a good 3-point defense. So you got pace, you got lack of defense, and I think that adds up to another game going over 225.5 this time. That was a pretty easy bet. I think every game's hit at least 230 to this point. I suppose if it's a complete blowout, the Nuggets might not do their part, but I think they do. And I also hit the Warriors over 117.5 team total, because if it is a blowout, they're scoring 140. If it's not a blowout, it's close. I still think they get into the mid to upper 120s.
Looking at some of the other playoff action, Holden, at least going back to last night, what can you say about the Nets and what they did? First of all, what's your thoughts on the Ben Simmons situation, on how that whole thing was handled on both sides from the team and also from Ben?
Well, it goes back to the Sixers, right? It goes back to the Sixers and Embiid hating him and the team hating him and the fans hating him. And then all of a sudden it became a mental health issue. And all season long, they're waiting for him to come back. He had a setback. He needed an epidural in his back. He's finally ready to come back, right? It was an odd report too, because after game two, he's going to be back in game 4. So the question was, why isn't he playing in game 3 if he's healthy enough to play in game 4? And then we don't see him in game 4. He has to meet with the Nets. There's obvious tension going on there. I think that he just looks like he doesn't want to play basketball right now. And if that's the case, go step away. And he stepped away game 4. He wasn't even on the bench. He knows he's getting crushed by everybody. And I'm sure there's teammates. The organization's frustrated with him. There's got to be teammates that are frustrated with him too. And then you look at what happened to the Nets. What happened to the Nets? I mean, they had the big 3, right? They had the big 3. Am I correct? They don't have the big 3. Then they had the big 2.5. They don't have the big 2.5. And it was up to 2 guys. And Kevin Durant didn't have the series that he needed to have. So just a reminder here, just because you're one of the top 2 or 3 best players in the game doesn't mean that every series is going to work out your way. And on the other side, the Celtics, I'm sitting on an 11-1 ticket for them to win the East. Defense. Tatum outplayed Durant. Boy, I want a Warriors-Celtics final. That's what I want. That's my dream matchup.
And also, too, Holden, when Brad Stevens stepped away as head coach of the Celtics to go to the front office, and Ime Udoka came in, he had a nice playing career with the Blazers and Spurs, and he was in San Antonio as an assistant under Greg Popovich. You're thinking, okay, it's going to be a tough transition. It was initially. Boston was sinking a bit before they really turned it on the last few months. So a very impressive job there by the Celtics. You're seeing Tatum reaching that borderline superstar level. Jaylen Brown, obviously an excellent player. But the other point, too, with Boston, they have the pieces around those 2 that the Nets didn't have around their big 2.
I'm a fan of them defensively. That's really what I like, because in a regular season, guys aren't playing that much. But we saw everything kind of flip. I think it was late January, and by February, I'm saying to myself, boy, these guys continue this way defensively. And then you got the 1-2 punch of Tatum and Brown. Marcus Smart, kind of their glue guy. You tell me why they shouldn't be the favorite in the Eastern Conference right now. The way they've looked for 3 months, and in the first round, just completely decimating a team that a lot of people thought would win that series.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is Boston beat Brooklyn a few times this year without those guys. So you figure, all right, Durant and Irving are going to be back. So now Brooklyn will play better. And Brooklyn's got to be kicking themselves. Even with Harden gone, with Ben Simmons not playing, you blew the game 1. Game 2, you blew as well. You had a horrible fourth quarter. And then game 4, they were behind. They were just too far behind. They couldn't catch up. But Brooklyn, if they could have just got one of those 2 in Boston, maybe there's a shot. But down 2-0 heading home, it was done. Yeah,
and they're just a mess too. I mean, between the whole Kyrie situation this year, the Harden situation, the Simmons, think about the drama that was going on with this team. I mean, thank God they weren't the Knicks, because in New York, the media coverage really would have been all over them, but there was still enough there. It just seemed like the Nets were doomed. And for anybody that thought they were going to make a run and because weren't they the second favorite team to win the title, which was a little bit, I think that they weren't they?
It was them and the Lakers.
Yeah, there was just too much. There was just too much going against them. And then in the series, there was too much going against them. And it's great to have Durant and it's great to have Kyrie, but you need a supporting cast, and they just didn't have one.
What are your thoughts on any of the games for tonight? You got Hawks, Heat, Wolves, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Suns. Anything there?
You're down there in the Miami area. You tell me why the Heat aren't going to cover tonight. What is it, 8.5?
No, it's down to like 6.5 now.
Ooh,
and you know what?
Yeah, last night we were discussing it, saying, man, 8 is a nice number. I think that they're going to cover the 8. So a lot of people are coming in on the other side. Steve it down. I like the Heat tonight, and I like them big.
You know what, Holden? I think after we see these blowouts like we saw in Game 4, and I feel the same way with Milwaukee, Chicago tomorrow, Chicago getting 10, I feel like that could be worth a look because people will say, okay, the Heat just blew out the Hawks. Atlanta's done. Trae Young has not played well in this series. I mean, shoot, he misses that shot at the end of the lane. They get swept. I don't know. I just got to think Atlanta's going to step up one of these games. I know the whole do factor. I got to believe they're going to step up and play the Heat tough one of these games and hang around.
Well, I'll just you think they're going to hang around, but here, and I got it at 7 now. You're right, 6.5, 7. Wow, that's a nice little number. But this is why I bet NBA Live, my friend. This is why I bet it live. You will rarely see me go into a game pregame. You're just going to get a better number at some point in time. And you could have done it during this Warriors Nuggets series. I've done that a couple of times, been burned 2 times, but got 2 wins there. And if it's uncomfortable, if you're not with me thinking the Heat are just going to go in there, I'm not saying the Hawks are going to lay down, but Jimmy Butler is on a different level when he gets to the playoffs, isn't he? It's like him and Kawhi Leonard. You get those guys on a team during the regular season, okay. But the postseason, they seem to carry these teams, bring them up. I like the Heat big here. Like I said, hopefully the Hawks will get out to a nice little lead. We can get this thing down to 2 or 3 and then roll from there. But it would not surprise me if I didn't get in this game at all, just because we didn't get much lower than 6.5, 7.
Did you jump in on that Minnesota-Memphis game or Game 3 when they were down 26, try to get a big number?
I did it, plus 635, my friend.
Oh, you went money line on it.
Now. It was a quarter unit. And everybody's making, why didn't you put a full unit down? You would have really made some money. I'm like, can you give me a break here? I pulled a 635 out of my hat. Come on, give me a break. With all the crappy calls I've had, it was a nice one. I'll take no matter what return I get at plus 625 or 635 or whatever the hell it was.
Look, we've seen a lot of these games that these teams take these big leads. And we saw with Utah-Dallas on Saturday that Utah was up 12 at the half, and Dallas came back, took the lead, and obviously they blew it. And then, we saw Dallas win big last night. But, yeah, you can have these opportunities in the NBA playoffs because these teams are taking these massive leads.
It's the NBA.
Yeah.
It's the NBA. This is how it goes during the regular season, too. Except now you get to focus on one game at a time. You don't have to watch 3 or 4 and try and pick out the one that you want. Now, this goes back to Game 4. So I had the Warriors plus 6. And I had the Warriors money line. Ended up losing, like what? They were both minus 110 and maybe and then you had a massive plus on the money line. So I lost a little bit there. But again, Warriors down double digits easily. I'm getting plus 6 on a better team. I'm absolutely jumping in live.
Let's shift to the NFL, Holden, and we'll talk about the draft in just a moment. But you're in Denver. What's that vibe there with Russell Wilson now? Patrick Surtain, I heard his comments. He's saying it's just a different feel now. There's no Drew Lock, no Teddy Bridgewater. That now, even though Russell Wilson struggled at the end of last year with Seattle, probably wasn't 100%. Sometimes maybe the change of venue is good for him, and he always has his face around. We've seen him at the Nuggets games, at the Rockies games. What's that vibe now with him as the quarterback going into this season?
He looks sexy in that Broncos uniform. It changed everything. This team has been garbage since Peyton Manning left. Oh, yeah. He was Rockies property, the Rockies, too. He could have played baseball here while he was at it. But Russell Wilson has just changed everything. This went from a franchise mired in probably the worst stretch in franchise history. One of the most successful, not just NFL franchise, one of the most successful franchises in all of American sports. And think about that. Since Peyton Manning was gone, Trevor Siemian, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So at least there's hope here. And then, yeah, he's all in. He bought a $25 million house here already, him and Sierra. Hopefully he'll go to some Avs games too, because that's kind of exciting. I'm excited about Stanley Cup playoffs coming up next week or in a week and a half or so. But yeah, he's here, and this city is a buzz, and it's the biggest thing that has happened in sports, I would say, maybe in 6 years here. Seriously, because it's all Broncos. Like, you have Nuggets fans, you have Avs fans. Unfortunately, 3/4 of Denver does not have access to watching those teams, which is fascinating. The Rockies, once every 5-10 years, maybe they'll make an appearance in the playoffs. So it's big, man. Biggest story in the offseason, maybe in the NFL.
Because we've seen, Holden, a lot of these quarterbacks towards the end of their career moving to a different team. Peyton was kind of the first. Well, actually, Joe Montana was going to the Chiefs, got him to the AFC title game, and they ended up losing to the Bills, but still made the Chiefs relevant. And then you see Peyton going to the Broncos, what he did, even though he wasn't really responsible for that Super Bowl, it's more the defense. He was kind of shot at that point.
He brought him back.
But Brady going to the Bucks, and now this just kind of both sides need it. It's the Broncos need it, and Russell Wilson, I think, needs to be out of Seattle.
Yes, for a while now. And we know he's been frustrated for the last couple of years. And the difference between Seattle and Denver is, in Seattle, he had to adapt to their offense. In Denver, Nathaniel Hackett has built the offense around Russell Wilson. So for those of you that are concerned, he's been in decline. The numbers haven't been as good. I think it's all going to change this year. He's got some good mojo, some positive vibes. The new coaching staff wants to build the offense to what he does well, not to build it around the running game. I see a huge year out of this Broncos offense. I don't know if this is the year that they make the run to the Super Bowl, but I think it's coming up within the next 2 to 3 seasons.
How close was Aaron Rodgers going to the Broncos?
I don't think he was. After all this time, thinking that Russell Wilson was the pipe dream, there's evidence now that the two sides between the Broncos and the Seahawks, plan A was Russell Wilson just about all along. And Aaron Rodgers was using the Broncos as leverage, and I don't blame him for doing that. But I think a lot of us were wrong there, and it was Russell Wilson was the number one target. And I think he's obviously the better fit. I didn't think Wilson would end up here. I think most people were in my camp. But if you want me to choose Aaron Rodgers in the final 3 years of his career, or maybe getting 6 or 7 out of Russell Wilson, a rejuvenated Russell Wilson, I'm going with Wilson.
Now, looking at the draft coming up Thursday in Vegas, Seattle's at 9 because they took Denver's pick for Russell Wilson. I got to assume Drew Lock is not the answer in Seattle. Do you think Malik Willis goes to the Seahawks with that pick?
I'm sitting on a long shot here. Malik Willis going number 2. Got this about a month ago. Malik Willis going number 2 to the Lions. I hope it happens. I don't think it does, but it's a long shot. I could see him going there. It's the type of quarterback that Pete Carroll likes. But it's interesting because I don't have too many first-round bets this year, Kevin. Most of my bets have to do with the Broncos. Broncos minus 125 to go defense with their first pick. Things like that. But for the Seahawks there, they obviously need a quarterback. They got some nice draft picks. They got a nice haul. They got that number 9. So it would not shock me to see Willis go there. But there's so many needs that the Broncos need. And there's not even a first-day pick. So most of my focus has been on pick number 64. George Payton, the GM, may move up too. They got a lot of needs as far as depth goes. I think they could use a starting cornerback at this point, but 64 is what I'm focusing on. There are a couple of first round picks though, first round bets that I got. If you're interested in those, I think Derek Stingley goes top 10. I think Kyle Gordon goes in the first round. Those are the 2 bets that I placed so far.
Do you buy into Trayvon Walker being the top pick after all the numbers moved yesterday?
Shad Khan's a bad owner, isn't he? We've just seen mistake after mistake after mistake. I'm not going to put him in Dan Snyder territory because Dan Snyder's on a tier all his own, but he's kind of in that next tier. And if he wants Hutchinson, who's to say that Hutchinson in the pick? So I know the lines moved, but to me, it's going to come down to the power struggles. Is it the GM Balky that gets the pick, or does Shad Khan make the pick? Looks to me like Balky will probably get there. At least that's what the books are telling us.
Now, going back to the quarterbacks for a second, the over-under first-round quarterbacks is 2.5. So you'd assume it's Willis. You'd assume it's Pickett. The Steelers, there's a lot of ties to him going to the Steelers. And also Carolina's kind of hanging around, too. They need a quarterback. But do you think it's going to be that third quarterback that goes in the first round? If it's Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati or who's the other quarterback I'm just blanking on right now? Not Sam Howell.
Corral?
Oh, Matt Corral from Ole Miss, right. Do you think the one sneaks in?
Yeah, I go over 2.5. I think one of those, just quarterback, I don't care that this is a weak quarterback class. How many times have they said it's a strong quarterback class? It turns out to be crap. Yeah. How many times has it been a bad quarterback class? And then you get one or two guys that really stand out, right? Teams that need a quarterback are going to reach to get a quarterback. Over 2.5 is the play there.
What about running backs? Because we always see running backs go in the second round. It's half. You get one.
Who takes them? The Bills?
I've heard that.
Last year, who was? 2 years ago was the Chiefs, right? Last year it was the Steelers. This year it's the Bills. Is that the missing piece? If you look at what has happened, though, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not had a good start to his career. Harris was the focal point of his offense, but do we have a running back that is the pedigree of Najee Harris this year? If you think so, then maybe Buffalo takes the running back there. But it's a bet I'm staying away from.
Right, because Kenneth Walker had a huge year at Michigan State, and you'd wonder if Breece Hall from Iowa State's the favorite, then Kenneth Walker's second. You wonder if he slips in, if he's a one-hit wonder or what. But I want to go back to the Broncos for a second, Holden. Where are you ranking them in the AFC West now? We see the Chiefs maybe taking a minor step back. Tyreek Hill's with the Dolphins. The Chiefs are going backwards the last few years, going from Super Bowl champion to Super Bowl loser to AFC champion loser or AFC championship loser. Chargers, I don't know what to think of them because I feel like the head coach of the Chargers,
Staley.
Brandon Staley, that Chiefs game was just mind-boggling to me, that Thursday night game and what he did, where in reality, the Chargers are a playoff team if he doesn't try to be too smart for the room. But tell me the AFC West. What's your pecking order? And also, do you think the Chargers make that move up next season?
Oof. Well, first of all, just as far as the Broncos go, Bet Rivers had the win total at 10. I thought they would post it at 11. So that was an easy over for me. I think it was minus 114. You could check it out yourself. Go shop at a book. That's fine. But we go to the AFC West now. It's still kind of tough to go against Mahomes, isn't it? I know Tyreek Hill isn't there, but and Kelsey is in a little bit of a decline. I want to see what they can do defensively. But maybe they're not the best team in the division. You mentioned the Chargers. I think you and I have the same questions about Brandon Staley. It's not the way Staley is choosing to make these decisions because he's just taking a stand. And this is how I'm going to coach. The problem is that all those decisions seem to backfire last year. So
in the biggest spot, you win that game, well, you're in.
Again, he's buying into his philosophy, and he's going to stick with his philosophy. And you would think at some point in time, the law of averages, this thing's going to come back to the mean, and all of a sudden going for it on fourth and a little bit longer is going to pay off. I think the game that you're talking about, though, was inexperience and a lack of adaptation to the game situation that he's in. So he's still a really young coach. Broncos have a guy, first-year head coach, too. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Broncos win this thing. I'll go Chiefs, I'll go Broncos, I'll go Chargers, and I'll go Raiders. And I think there's a definite possibility that three of those teams make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, you have two first-year head coaches. I mean, McDaniels is coach before. He was in Denver. And a second-year head coach in Staley, and obviously Andy Reid has been there forever. So the Chiefs, it just feels that way, Holden, that every year they're, in a sense, regressing. And yeah, they blew the Bengal game. Like, they were up. They were in control of that game. Let's not make it out to be that Cincinnati destroyed them. They were in control of that game. But yet, it's just not – they're not going the right way right now.
They're the best coach team in the division. They've got the best quarterback in the division. Outside of that, they don't have the best defense. The best defense is in Denver. Mm-hmm. Maybe the most balanced team is Denver. The Chargers could be there. Maybe Herbert is going to challenge that and be the best quarterback this season. There's just something with this Chargers organization. They can't get out of their own way. And until they show me that they can do that, until Staley shows me he can adapt to in-game situations and maybe be a little more flexible with some of his play calls, using these advanced numbers. I put them behind the other two teams.
I know you were in DC for a while. How dumb of a name is the Commanders?
I don't worry about that. It's fine. Seriously.
I like the football team. At first, I thought it was.
I like the football team too. I'm not getting upset about names, though. I mean, I just debated for 13 years there. Oh, should they keep the Redskins name or not? And, it's like, thank God it's finally over. I loved football team. We made fun of it when it came out. I got used to it. Football team. How great is that to look at the lines? Football team plus 74, against the Broncos this week. I miss it too, but Commanders is fine. You'll get used to it, buddy. Don't sweat over it. There's more important things to say are gross than the Commanders.
How are you doing in baseball this year?
Good. I'm good. I wouldn't say I'm super profitable. I'm also not in the red. So that's good news. I think my strategies here, you got to adapt, right? A lot of unders. Just betting a lot of unders.
And no pitchers batting either.
No pitchers batting. First fives. A lot of first fives here. If you're looking at, a couple of good pitchers, you can get 4.5s in first fives. I think we had a 4.5 last night between Walker Buehler and Merrill Kelly. Are you kidding me? I know the Dodgers got 2 early runs, but Walker Buehler, Merrill Kelly, humidor baseballs, it's just not flying right now. Now, it's going to get really interesting. Pitchers think they're using 2 different baseballs again. So who knows when this thing is going to change? It really did make it challenging last year, didn't it, from time to time? But for now, I think, if I'm leaning toward an under more often than not, I'm going to bet it.
Finally, just back locally with the Rockies, what was the reaction to the Chris Bryant signing? Because he's done well for them. I know that the Rockies are still behind the Dodgers and the Giants and San Diego in that division. But is there any excitement now with Chris Bryant there as part of the Rockies?
I mean, it's more what the hell is the plan? You didn't get anything for Arenado. You got nothing for Trevor Story. You got nothing for John Gray. And then you go out and you sign Chris Bryant. Like, what is your plan? Please. That's what it is. That is the big question here. Fine. Glad you got Chris Bryant. He's a really good hitter. He's not Arenado level hitter, I don't think. He's right there around Trevor Story. He's got a big contract. He's not going to be paying off in that contract the last couple of years of it. So I don't know what the plan is. All I know is that the plan at least seems, it's almost like an amoeba. It's always changing, right? I think that the plan is go out there. You got 4 good starting pitchers. Hopefully they keep you in the game. The bullpen's gotten off to a great start, and you hit it home. Connor Joe's coming up. CJ Cron's coming up. They got some power in that lineup. We saw them hit home runs, but it really is an organization where you just don't know what the plan is. Let's do it on the fly and see if we can put a good team together. But they're off to a great start, and I'm really enjoying it. I'll tell you, it's tough watching a bad baseball team, especially you and I did in Kansas City, right, with the Royals. It's tough watching bad baseball, and you're in Miami too. But they're off to a nice start, so I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
Well, and also, too, with this Rockies team, the first 2 road series, we know how bad they were on the road last year. They played Texas and Detroit. And I know they won both those series. They got wiped out in that Miguel Cabrera 3,000 hit game. But they still won 4 of the first 5 in the road. They lost to the Phillies last night. So we'll see what they do against some better competition. And finally, before I let you go, your thoughts on the Kyle Schwarber thing the other night.
Good. Angel Hernandez sucks. And if the umpires union is not going to hold their guys to a certain standard, then I hope players start going berserk on him. He didn't hit Angel Hernandez, but he went ballistic. Good, go ballistic. Some of these umpires have no business being umpires. None. Laz Diaz, Angel Hernandez, Joe West.
Joe West. Good. I'm glad he retired.
I've got to see him. He can go sing his country music now. There's just no oversight, Kevin, and that's the problem. I think if they had oversight, I'd have absolutely no problem with umpires staying. I'm ready for robot umps, though. And it's the umpire's own fault between A, not calling a consistent strike zone, B, not being good at umpiring, and C, no oversight. So good for Kyle Schwarber, and I hope more players go bananas on these guys that are consistently horrible.
So how do the players argue with the robot umpires? That's why I want to know.
You don't have to, because they're going to be right.
They'll still find a way to argue.
No, they can argue with a robot. Robot ain't going to argue back. It's just going to be like, you're out. Deal with it. Go take your bat and blast the robot.
You are ejected.
You aren't ejected. Please eject me from Vegas Insider right now.
Holden Kushner, VSiN Denver City Cast, presented by Bet Rivers. Holden, you have a great robot voice.
Thank you. Hopefully I don't have to use it too much more. It'd be a little creepy going forward, and my radio career would probably be done. So,
it's okay.
But I could use a robot.
It's all robotic anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
You're right. You're right, my friend. Good to see you, K-Raj.
You too. I'm glad we got to talk, and we'll definitely catch up before we get to football.
Good. Let's do it.
Holden Kushner. You can check him out on Twitter at Holden Radio. Thank you, Holden.
Do it. Check me out at Holden Radio. Just do it. Bye, K-Raj.
Just check him out. Thank you, Holden. All right, there he is, Holden Kushner, live in Denver, Colorado. And yeah, a lot of excitement there with the Broncos. You really wonder there with Russell Wilson does he have enough in the tank? And he's making himself visible. You got to give him that he's at all these games, and he always had that personality to do that, to take over a city. And he was huge in Seattle, and now in Denver, where the Broncos just need somebody. They need a savior at quarterback. And yeah, Peyton Manning was at the end of the line, but he had a record season before he was a little banged up when they won the Super Bowl. It's funny that he had the record season when they didn't win it, and then when they won it and they had that Von Miller defense that led them past Carolina, Peyton wasn't great, but he did enough. And now they look for another veteran Super Bowl winning quarterback to help them at least get back in a very difficult division, and seeing what else is in that division with Mahomes, with Justin Herbert, and even with Derek Carr, a great year in Vegas last year, that the Broncos need to keep up. And Drew Lock wasn't the answer. Bridgewater wasn't the answer. So they went with Russell Wilson, and now we'll see what they do this season. And again, with the draft, again, curious where the quarterbacks go. I know that offensive line's boring, defensive line is boring, even though those are major impact players. That Trayvon Walker out of Georgia is now the betting favorite to go to Jacksonville or at least to go number one, not necessarily Jacksonville. Obviously, if Jacksonville traded out, he'd still be the number one pick. But Aiden Hutchinson, if he ends up going to the Lions, former Michigan Wolverine, stays in that state, goes to the Lions, that could be interesting. But where Malik Willis goes, played at Liberty. Liberty made a lot of moves as far as they were an FCS team and then moved up to FBS. Hugh Freeze was the coach, the former Ole Miss coach, who had some issues there and then went to Liberty. And Malik Willis, a talented quarterback. Kenny Pickett's talented too. If he goes to the Steelers, he stays in Pittsburgh. So there's a lot going on there. I just don't think you'll get that third quarterback in the first round. I just don't see that where a team is going to use a pick that early unless they really need a quarterback there. So a lot going on with the NFL, not only the draft. Once we get past the draft this week, so much to talk about moving forward. We'll have the schedule come out in a few weeks, so that'll be very, very interesting. All right, Sports Illustrated Sportsbook. They are live in the state of Colorado. You can get up to $300 in free bets for new users only. Must be 21 years or older to play. Deposit with the promo code AFF300. And you can check it out now at sisportsbook.com. Again, only legal in the state of Colorado. So check them out now if you are there. And go to Sports Illustrated Sportsbook today. So we're not going to hit on every Major League Baseball game, considering there are 15 of them. But we'll hit on some of the highlights here before we exit. And this is like a quick run through. So the Brewers, who lost to the Giants last night, interesting scheduling spot for both Milwaukee and San Francisco. Because they had to redo the schedule after the lockout extended the first week of the season, and then they had to redo things to get those games in from that week. So San Francisco played Milwaukee at Miller or American Family Field, whatever it's called now. They played only one game. San Francisco won last night. The Giants finished off this long road trip where they went to Cleveland, New York, and Washington. They played a game in Milwaukee. Now they're coming back to the Bay Area to play the A's tonight. They are a heavy favorite. Carlos Rodon on the mound. Rodon has been amazing for the Giants. It's coming over from the White Sox. They're a 250, 260 favorite tonight against Oakland. And the A's basically stayed at home because they faced Texas this past weekend. They won the final game with the Rangers. They lost the first two. And Dalton Jeffries, who takes them out for the A's, he's actually pitched very well. I wonder if you catch the Giants in a major letdown spot after this long road trip with no rest coming back home. And Milwaukee goes to Pittsburgh, who they just swept last week, and Brandon Woodruff defeated Mitch Keller. Now Woodruff a shorter favorite here on the road, but Woodruff has struggled. He struggled in his lone road start against the Cubs earlier this year, and Keller's been all right. But those two teams, I think a tough scheduling spot for them, playing that one standalone game, and now both of them, well, Milwaukee going on the road and San Francisco, in a sense, going back on the road. They were on the road for this long, and now going home. It's just another change of venue and a change of time zones. So you have that. Padres swept the Reds when they just played each other in San Diego. Now Cincinnati coming off a rare win, and they're a heavy dog tonight against Joe Musgrove and the Padres, who are 10-7 on the season. You have Seattle heading east to face Tampa Bay. The Mariners swept the Royals. Tampa Bay off the 2 wins over the Red Sox. Boston ended up losing that game to Toronto last night. That Bo Bichette grand slam. It was a 2-2 game in the 8th. But Seattle, Logan Gilbert has been pretty good. He's a guy from Central Florida, so kind of a homecoming for him, playing that game in Tampa or in St. Pete. Royals and the White Sox both struggling. They face off in Chicago. White Sox have been bad. Dallas Keuchel goes. Daniel Lynch starts for Kansas City, so the Royals try to get back on track. Royals haven't won a road game yet this season. Minnesota, we'll see what they do after they just swept the White Sox. They have Chris Paddock going against Eduardo Rodriguez tonight. Tigers lost the final 2 to the Rockies at home. Also, this line is very curious. The Rangers and the Astros. Texas beat Houston last night. This game's almost at a pickup, and Jake Odorizzi goes for Houston. He was racked his last time out against the Angels. The Guardians, they got shut out by the Angels last night. So Cleveland, a heavy dog in Anaheim this evening. And that Mets-Cardinals game last night, nothing going to the 8th. Cardinals got 2 in the 8th. Mets got 5 in the 9th. So Max Scherzer, who was great, he got a no decision. But then Mets end up winning on the run line after being down 2-0 going to the 9th. So you don't see that often. And that game closed at 7, and that total push. So a tough one there. A lot of hockey tonight. The big game is Hurricanes, Rangers in New York. Rangers still an outside shot to win the Metro. They need to basically win out this week. They got to start with beating Carolina tonight. But Edmonton, Pittsburgh, a good game there in Western Pennsylvania. That number's dropped a little bit on the Capitals. Alexander Ovechkin, he didn't suit up for skate around this morning in D.C. They faced the Islanders, who have struggled of late. Panthers and Bruins in Boston. Panthers have wrapped up everything except for the President's Trophy. That's the next thing that they're trying to get. And St. Louis is at Colorado. Blues trying to get that 2 seed in the Central. Them and the Wild going at it. Minnesota heavy favorites tonight against Arizona, laying 550 against the Coyotes. So a lot going on in hockey. And then, of course, in the NBA, Heat can close things out against the Hawks. Minnesota, Memphis 2-2. New Orleans, Phoenix 2-2. And then tomorrow you have Bulls, Bucks, Nuggets, Warriors. And both the home teams are heavy favorites back on their home courts. So that is what's going on today in everything. Mike, thanks to Holden Kushner for joining us. VSiN Denver City Cast. Check that out. Holden does a great job with that. Tomorrow, our buddy from MTV, Devin Walker, who normally joins us every other Friday, some scheduling conflicts, so he's going to join us tomorrow. Tom Carroll, Tommy Freeze Pops from the Great Day Nation, he's going to be on as well. So Devin, who's a Massachusetts guy, I'm sure he'll have a lot of interesting things to say about the Celtics and their sweep of the Nets. So we are going to discuss that with Devin, among other things, coming up tomorrow on the Daily Insider, coming up at noon Eastern. So that is coming up tomorrow. We are looking forward to that. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel at Vegas Insider here on YouTube. Also, we have an NBA best bet video for Hawks Heat, also Timberwolves Grizzlies. You can find that on our YouTube channel as well. And we'll have our NFL draft video coming out in just a little bit, looking ahead to Thursday with Scott Smith from the Action Network. So that is all there. Very busy week. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching today's edition of the Daily Insider. And as always, best of luck with your bets.